classroom management program. Let's get started with the use of CMP. As we look at the screen, we're going to find that we have our basic login. Very important to understand the login. We have preset logins, which you will actually do upon installation of the program. Now, once again, it is important to understand to use the manual that covers the installation of the program and all settings that must be made. Once again, like I've mentioned, it is important that you use the manual. I will be referencing several pages, which in this case, we'll get started with the user creation once I get logged in. So let me get logged in first of all. And at that point, we're at the home page of the use of the classroom management program. Now I'll be referencing CMP to actually talk about the classroom management program. So once again, CMP is the classroom management program. At that point, we're going to look at this screen and we start off with the use of a user. So we have to start off with a user. So in this case, I will scroll down here and I will go to users because it's important to create a user. Now we have a certain presets already made, but just to show you how it will look once you have certain, in other words, you have already instructors or administrators already logged in. But in this case, we're going to start off by the use of create. In other words, you're using a create instructor tab cell. So I'm going to click on create user. And if you have various instructors, or maybe you have part-time adjunct instructors as well, this is important for them to give them access to the use of the CMP. Now we start off with the use of their role. Is it an administrator, is it an instructor? And you can also enter the name, create a username, which often you can create it along with a password, because again, CMP is password protected, along with confirming the password and also entering a PIN number. Once that is all entered, again, you're going to see if it's active or non-active and select the course that instructor administrator will have access to. In this case, I have one already created. In other words, I created a class already, which is Electrical 1. Now at that point, I will go ahead and click on create user, and we should be able at that point see the actual administrator or instructor that has already been created as a user. So this is all outlined on page 36 to page 38. Important to understand it in the event you didn't catch this. Again, once you start the CMP program, you have to create the users, whether it be administrators, instructors, or part-time instructors, and each one of them will have their separate login information and also password and PIN number as well. So it's important that you establish that first before moving on forward with the classroom management program. As we establish the user login, at that point, we're ready to actually create a class. As we look at the home page here of the CMP system, we're going to find that under Manage, you're going to see Classes. And in this case, what you'll be able to do is create a class. Now, I have already a class established, but we're going to create a new class. And let's say this is another, pretty much another class in your facility that's teaching class. So we'll name this one Electrical 101, as if I can learn how to type here. But in this case, we got Electrical, and we'll put 101 here. That'll be the name of the course. Now you can change the name, you can add different course names, whatever it might be, using either the ATech training boards or using actually the 1810 or 1820. Now there you can see we now have our Electrical 101 class. Now this will list various different classes, so if there are other instructors teaching different courses, they're going to have their list of students, because as you can see on the screen, under Electrical 1, we already have one student enrolled already. In the 101, since I just created the class, there are 0 students. But at this point, you need to create the class before you move forward on adding the students. To add a class, that can be found in the manual between page 25 and 26. In the use of the CMP program, we're now going to go ahead and add or create a student to add to an existing class. So as I go once again to my home page of the CMP program, I will go down to Manage and go to Students. At that point, I am able to create a student. Now, we already have an existing student at this time in this course, but we are actually selecting the 101 class that I actually had created earlier. Now, in this case, again, once again, Electrical 101, we create student. Upon creating a student, you're going to enter an ID. Now, for those of you in different schools, or such as post-secondary or secondary, there may be a student number. If the student number is greater than 9 digits, you can actually enter the last 9 of their student ID. This will make it easier to track them and also in their evaluation process as well. You will enter their first name, their last name, and also make a password. So in this case, we can create something, for example, there's my name, and we're going to put We're going to put C here, Tony C. And in this case, we can create a password. And in this case, that password, we'll just make it a simple password. And at that point, you're going to be enabling or providing this information to student, because this is the actual login that they'll be using when performing the exercises, either using the CBI or using the ATech training boards. And in this case, they're enrolled in the Electrical 101, a course that I made earlier. And at that point, that's going to be using once again, the electricity on the actual 1810 board. And once again, I can create the student at that point. And if there is an error, please note, I did not make a student ID number. So in this case, I'll enter, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and the last digit I'm just going to put as a 2, because we already have the 1 taken. So in this case, I create the student. And at that point, you're going to see now that we do have that student already in our 101 course. So therefore, we're going to show that. And this will make it easy for you to continue to enter more students as you create your roster or those that are attending your class. It is important to enter this correctly. Make sure the passwords and logins are easily accessible to the students, so when they log in to their respective board or CBI, they're able to go ahead and perform the exercises following the courseware. Now, to create a student or add a student in the classroom management system, that can be found on page 27 through 29 in the manual. In the CMP software, once you have students entered, there might be the need to edit the student. And what we mean by edit the student, and by the way, that is found on actual 27 through 29 of the manual, page 27 through 29 in the manual. Now, we will go once again to manual in the CMP program. We will click on students. And you can see the current students that I have in these classes. I have selected both of the electrical classes that have been preset already as a class, but you will see to the left of the ID number, there will be a pencil along with the trash can where you can actually delete a student, and you can also edit a student. And if you need to change their student ID number, maybe there's a name change or they've lost their password, this is where you'll be able to pretty much update the program they're in, the class they're in, any information you see here on this menu. So once again, from name to passwords to the actual class and the programs that they're in. And at that point, you can save those changes, and that'll update any information on that prospective student in that class. An administrator and instructor can import a list of students into the CMP program. What we're going to show you here is we're going to go to the home page, and we're going to go ahead and go to students once again. So I click on manage and I click on students. And upon doing that, on the upper right, we're going to see a tab that says import students. Now, depending what program you're using, either an educational program, that's a student management program, you need to understand that it has to be in CSV format. So here in the actual menu, we're going to find a tab that says download CSV file or template, and this will give you an understanding what needs to be in it in order to be imported into the CMP program. You have an ID number, you have a first name, last name, password, and the class itself. So they're showing you on the bottom, and this is all found again in the CMP when you click the student download button, and you'll be able to see what is needed in that CSV file to import it correctly. Now, I will go ahead and show you the sample or template file that's able to be downloaded. And in this case, I'm going to click on it. And at that point, it's going to open an Excel page. Now, using the Excel page, as you can see right here, you'll be able to enter the student name. So if you don't want to go one by one entering the students, you can actually enter them into this template. And again, making note of their ID number and everything that is requested by the program in order for you to make a good download or import of that student roster that you've created. Now, you can also use an existing CSV file, like I mentioned earlier, that can be found or can be pretty much exported from another type of program, which again can give it to you in CSV file. I cannot stress that enough, that it must be a CSV file. At that point, you can put them in what class that you selected, that you created already, whether in this case we have Electrical 1 or Electrical 101, and also the programs that they'll be involved in. So that'll actually set up your class. So if you don't want to be entering one student at a time, again, you can create a CSV file. In this case, we showed Excel, or you can have a program that your existing management program for students in your program that you may have can actually be downloaded. But once again, it must be in CSV file. Once that is all accomplished, then at that point you will click import, and it'll actually create your existing or a new roster for the class you might have. Another feature of the CMP system is to export a student file. And in this case, we will go ahead and go to the home page once again of the CMP. And at that point, we'll click on Manage. And on Manage, we're going to see the students. Now, we're going to go ahead and export a complete roster. So we only have 2 students listed here as a demonstration, but can we export that list of the student and their files? Now, please note, this does not show detailed information in their coursework that they've done. This is just pretty much a general spreadsheet that will allow another instructor to go ahead and use it to import it into their classes, as the students might move from one class to another. What I simply do is, you'll see on the bottom there's an export to CSV. So in this case, what I can do at that point is I'll click on it, and at that point you're going to see that in this case, we're going to see the name of those students. Now, we only had Sam and we only had Tony, so in this case we'll be able to see the basic spreadsheet of that. So maybe you had 10 or 15 or 20 students, how many you might have in the class, that would have been exported as a list. At that point, that could be emailed, printed, or whatever media you're using to actually transfer that information at that point. Exporting students can be found on pages 34 through 35.